Hello, dear medical students. Now we are going to discuss the fourth lesson and the final part of the listening and speaking skills of Unit 5 entitled Environment. We're going to explore together some speaking skills, particularly how to link ideas and how to give advantages and disadvantages on a topic. And then we are going to practice a speaking task with each other, particularly an argument for and against an idea. Critical thinking. Please open your Unlock student book on page 98. Critical thinking. In critical thinking, there are 5 main steps you need to move, among them chronologically, to really criticize a topic, to think well about a topic. First, the first step, you need to understand what is this topic. To know information, you need to have a background information about this topic to fully understand it. And then, to ensure that you fully understood this topic, you need to apply some practice on examples, on exercises to ensure that you have fully understood this topic. And then, analyze what other people are saying, their opinions about this topic. Are their opinions positive or negative regarding this topic? And then create your own opinion. Are you with or against? Do you agree or disagree with this topic? And finally, evaluate your arguments when working in a group. Evaluate others when practicing with them and expressing and exchanging your arguments. You are going to evaluate their opinions. Are they with or against? And explain your opinion with your reasons why you are with and why you are against. So you need to pass among these 5 steps. First, understand the topic, then apply examples and practice to ensure that you have fully understood it. Then analyze other people's opinions. Are they with or against? Are they positive or negative? Then create your own opinion with justification, with the reasons. And then when you work in a group and participate in a discussion, you can evaluate other people's opinions and express yours as well. Let's apply this strategy, the critical thinking strategy, on a topic. For example, the genetically modified food. That's our topic for today. Genetically modified food. In page 98, you are going to do a speaking task below. You are a member of a city council and you are asked to decide how to develop a large piece of land. Farmers, scientists, politicians found that the world is rapidly growing. We are going to reach 9 billion population by 2050. So this necessitates to increase the food production by at least 60%. There are many ways to increase the food production. One of these is the genetically modified crops. Other ways use chemicals and pesticides to help protect the crops from drought, protect the crops from high temperatures. The cross-breeding techniques. Farmers and agricultures use the cross-breeding techniques to help the plant and the crops to grow stronger and healthier. Yeah, it's successful, but it's very slow and can take years to reach the desired goal. So this led to the discovery and the invention of the genetically modified food. Genetically modified food is food modified by using genetic techniques. Genetically modified technique is taking a desirable gene from one plant, for example, and inserting and implanting it into another plant. It means I am introducing a desirable gene with a desirable feature of one plant to another. So I'm getting the good features of this plant into the other plant. Are you with or are you against? Okay, this technology has proven very controversial. We don't know the safety and the efficacy, and thus many governments have banned the sale of genetically modified food for human consumption. In the UK, for example, it's you can find meat from animals reared on genetically modified crops. It's widely available. In the United States, the genetically modified food has been available for human consumption for years, but this must be clearly labeled on the food product. I'd like to express the difference between the genetically modified crops and organic crops. They are not opposite. As we mentioned, the genetically modified crops, we insert a desirable feature of a plant into another to get this desirable feature into the other plant. The organic crops are different. Organic crops are crops cultivated in healthy environment without using chemicals, without using pesticides. It's possible to buy meat from animals that have not been fed genetically modified crops, but they have been fed non-organic food, non-organic crops, crops grown by using chemical pesticides. So the majority of non-genetically modified food for the human consumption is not organic, as it has been grown using such pesticides. So that's the point I need you to fully understand. The genetically modified crops is not opposite to the organic crops. Organic crops are healthy crops implanted and cultivated and grown in healthy environment without using pesticides, without using chemicals. That's the organic. The non-organic, we used chemicals, we used pesticides in their growth. The genetically modified crops are different, a totally different entity. So we expressed what's the meaning of genetically modified food, and we differentiated between the genetically modified food and the organic food, and we mentioned that they are not opposite. So what are the advantages and the disadvantages of genetically modified food and crops? For example, from the advantages, using the genetically modified techniques in growing crops, it improves the production. It gives you very large amount of crops in short time, and thus it raises the farmer's income. It also reduces the use of pesticides and insecticides that might be harmful. And as we mentioned, it can increase the yields dramatically and thus can feed the rapidly increasing population. You can produce more grains and crops in a small area of land. But there are some disadvantages. What are the disadvantages for using the genetically modified food or the genetically modified crops? First, it's relatively a new practice. We don't know the long-term effects and the safety. It might trigger allergic reactions. We don't know. Some researchers believe that it can contribute to the development of cancer because it might result in mutations. Although there is no evidence for this, but to reach a conclusion, a definite conclusion, this will require more research. As we mentioned, the genetically modified crops can resist diseases by bacteria and viruses, and that's a good thing. But the problem is that this resistance might be passed from these crops after the humans consume them into the bacteria inside the human body. The bacteria in the gut, for example. There are some bacteria, helpful bacteria in the gut. This resistance might be passed, who knows, might be passed from these crops or grains to the bacteria in the gut. So this bacteria becomes resistant to certain antibiotics. And this is going to be a very big problem to humans. So these are some of the disadvantages of the genetically modified food. That's why it's banned in many supermarkets. As we mentioned, you can only find them in some UK shops, and in the United States, you can find them available for years, but it must be clearly labeled. So that's the understanding. Then the second step in critical thinking is apply this understanding on examples to know, did you fully understand this topic or not? Let's apply our understanding on this slide. Look at this picture, the top 10 genetically modified food. May I ask, which of the food items in the photos have you eaten? I'm not speaking about genetically modified food now. From these, what food items have you eaten? Have you eaten corn? Of course, in the bread. The soya, that's right. The rice, it's popular in Egypt. Tomatoes, very popular. Potatoes, the dairy products, the butter, the yogurt, cheese, the peas, orange juice. Yeah, I don't know about the papaya, the canola oil. So most of us have consumed these foods. Did you ask yourself, might this food be genetically modified? Yeah, probably. Do you prefer to eat genetically modified food? Would you mind eating genetically modified food? We mentioned the advantages and the disadvantages in the previous slide. So after this, do you mind to eat genetically modified food? Do you find it safe to eat genetically modified food? One can say, okay, it helps to increase the production, to increase the food, and the good characters from one plant is transferred to another plant. A good flavor, for example, good criteria from one plant is added to another plant, so it helps to improve the plants, to improve the crops. Others can say, I'm not sure about the long-term and safety effects. It might lead to cancer, it might lead to genetic mutations, It might lead to bacterial resistance in the human body. That's an argument. So now we applied our understanding of genetically modified food on these different types of foods. And by the way, these different types of food have been genetically modified in some countries like the United Kingdom and the United States. The third step is analyze. We have understood what is the genetically modified food, and then we applied our understanding on some types of the genetically modified food, and then now it's our turn to analyze other people's opinions about genetically modified food. Are they with or against? Is it positive or negative? Let's take them one by one. The first guy said, in my opinion, genetically modified food benefits people in developing countries, especially where there is an extreme climate like Africa. Genetically modified food is stronger, and the crops are not easily destroyed by heat. It's clear he is positive. He is with using genetically modified. The other lady is saying, I think that genetically modified food is unnatural. We don't know for sure, but it may lead to long-term diseases or allergies. That's a negative idea. The third person says, do we really know how growing genetically modified food affects nature? We don't fully understand yet. For example, it could change the ecosystem of an area and create super insects or destroy other plants. It's an environmental risk. We need to do more research. He is taking a step back. He has a negative idea, a negative opinion about genetically modified food. The fifth girl is saying, from my point of view as a shopper, genetically modified food is not as bad as people think. Farmers have been changing our food's DNA for centuries by selecting the best plants or animals to grow. It helps farmers use better, cheaper food. And eventually, that's an advantage for the customer. So she's supporting using the genetically modified food. So that's a positive idea. That's a positive opinion. So now we analyze other people's opinion. Now let's create our opinion. You need to create your opinion. Are you with or against genetically modified food? I am creating my opinion now. I fully understand the topic. I applied some practice to ensure my fully understanding of it. And then we analyzed other people's sayings and opinions. And then it's time to create our own opinion. Are you with or against genetically modified food? Write down some notes. Are you with or against? And write down some reasons. That's the fourth step. And you can do some internet research to help you for that. And then finally, evaluate. That's the final step. You are going to participate in a discussion among a group. You say down your opinion. Are you with or against? And the justification and the reasons. And everyone in this group, in this discussion, is going to mention his opinion and mention down the reasons. You are going to listen to arguments and counter arguments about genetically modified food. That's the final step of the critical thinking, which is evaluation. Now let's move to speaking. Before the speaking task, we need to get ourselves well prepared for speaking. To be prepared well for speaking, first, we need to know how to link ideas together by linking words and how to mention advantages and disadvantages about a topic. Let's practice these together. We are going to read extracts from a discussion about building a new nuclear power plant near a city. We are going to complete the gaps with linking words or phrases from the box. A. I'd like to say that I completely disagree with building a nuclear power plant so close to the city. Then he or she is going to start the argument. So, to begin with, I understand that modern nuclear power plants are safer than they used to be, and that the plant would be far from our houses. And then she's mentioning an opposite argument, a contradicting argument. I worry about my children. She was speaking that it's safer, and then she changed the argument into an opposite one. I worry about my children. If there is a nuclear disaster, our children will be exposed to radiation. So, however, turns an idea to an argument, an opposing argument, a contradicting argument. B. I have to agree with this. I worry about the nuclear waste. There are two big questions here. Two big questions. He's going to mention the first. So, first of all, how can we make sure that it does not leak to our water supply or soil? That's the first question. What's the second one? So, secondly, where are we going to throw away the nuclear waste? I don't think the government should go ahead with this project. Instead, we could build a solar power plant. It would be cleaner. So then he is concluding. Let's ask questions, and he is concluding his speech. So overall, I think that solar energy would be the best option. C. I don't think it's completely true that solar panels are better than nuclear energy. So he's comparing between solar panels and nuclear energy. Solar power is very expensive to set up. And what? And then he's speaking about nuclear power plant would be cheaper. So the solar power is very expensive and the nuclear power plant would be cheaper. He's comparing. So in comparison, a nuclear power plant would be cheaper in the long term and it would create more jobs. D. I agree that our city needs more employment. And then we need cheap, affordable energy. So besides the more employment, we need cheap and affordable energy. So as well as we need more employment, as well as we need cheap, affordable energy. On one hand, from one point of view, I mean, on one hand, it's clean. It's clear we need. It's clear that a nuclear power plant will solve both these problems. That's on one hand. What's about the other hand? On the other hand, I worry about the plant being so close to our homes. I suggest that we build it as far from the city as possible. We mentioned a point. On one hand, it's clear that the nuclear power plant will solve both the problems of the employment and cheap, affordable energy. And on the opposite side, on the other hand, that's the opposite thing, the opposite opinion, the opposite argument. I worry about the plants being so close to our homes. So these are the linking ideas. Some expressions, some words, some phrases are used to in contradicting sentences, like however, like on the other hand. Others are used to start the argument, first of all, and continue giving more examples, secondly, and then conclude like overall. Some are, some are used to compare two things together, in comparison. Let's put them together in one table. The linking words or phrases, some are used for explaining a sequence of ideas. For example, to begin with, first of all, secondly, firstly, finally, next. These are explaining a sequence of ideas. Others are used for comparing and contrasting ideas, like however, on the other hand, in comparison, despite, that, in contrast, although, but, contrasting or comparing ideas. Adding another idea, Adding another example, as well as, also, in addition, and what's more. And to summarize, to conclude, we use overall, all in all, to sum up, to conclude, in conclusion. These are the linking words or phrases. Now let's do more exercises on using the linking words or phrases. Circle the best word or phrases below. It says, in my opinion, nuclear energy is safe. And then it's cheap and clean. So it's adding more data. Also, it's beside it is safe, also it is cheap and clean. I think that nuclear power plants look ugly and destroy the landscape. It's starting the argument. Firstly, I think that nuclear power plants look ugly and destroy the landscape. And then saying they don't always provide jobs for local people. What's more, it's adding more data about the disadvantages of the nuclear power plants. What's more, besides, in addition to, they don't always provide jobs for local people. So, firstly, I think that nuclear power plants look ugly and destroy the landscape. What's more, it means in addition, they don't always provide jobs for local people. Solar energy is an unlimited source of energy. And then mentioned, it's safe and environmentally friendly. These are all positive criteria. So in addition to being unlimited source of energy, also they are safe and environmentally friendly. So in addition, we cannot say on the other hand. On the other hand, it's an opposing argument after it. Wind turbines do not destroy the landscape. And then they can be dangerous for birds. So wind turbines do not destroy the landscape. And then an opposing idea, despite that they can be dangerous for birds. So it's good that they don't destroy the landscape. That's good. But they can be dangerous for the birds. So despite that, they can be dangerous for birds. An opposing idea. There are many reasons why we should build a solar power plant. There are many reasons for that. And then solar energy is affordable and safe. He's concluding, yeah, there are many reasons why we should build a solar power plant. And in conclusion, to sum up, solar energy is affordable and safe. That's how we use linking words and phrases. Linking words and phrases, we can use them to explain a sequence of ideas. First, secondly, firstly, finally, next. To compare contrasting ideas, however, in comparison, find that, but adding another idea, adding more examples, as well as also, and in addition, what's more, summarizing ideas to sum up overall. These are the linking words or phrases. Now let's speak about how to give advantages and disadvantages about that topic. If you are asking to give advantages and disadvantages about a topic, first you need to differentiate them in the people's opinion. Let's try to know, are these phrases or extracts talking about advantages or disadvantages? We are going in question number 5 to look at extracts at questions from 1 to 6 from a debate about genetically modified food. Do the words or phrases in bold talk about advantages or disadvantages? Let's go with them together one by one. In my opinion, there are many pros of genetically modified food. Pros means with, means advantage. Cons means disadvantages. So when we say pros, it means advantages. So pros means advantages. Number 2, personally, I think that genetically modified crops have a negative effect on our environment. A negative effect. So it's a disadvantage. Number 3, the good thing about genetically modified food is that they can feed a large number of people cheaply. The good thing, it's an advantage. The main benefit of genetically modified food is that it allows farmers to grow food without pesticides. The main benefit, it's an advantage. There are many cons of using genetically modified corn to feed animals. As we mentioned, pros means advantage, cons means disadvantage. So when say cons, it means disadvantage. The second drawback of genetically modified food is that we don't know its effects on our health. Drawbacks, complications. So it means disadvantages. So this how you conclude from the speech. Is this opinion is with or against? Is it mentioning advantages or disadvantages about the topic? Exercise 6. You can do it as a home practice. Work with yourself as a home exercise. You can complete the sentences below with your own idea. For example, the biggest drawback of nuclear energy is that its complications, its problems can be catastrophic. If the nuclear power plant explodes, it is catastrophic, like the Fukushima or the Chernobyl. So you can say the biggest drawback of nuclear energy is that it can be catastrophic if it's complicated. Number 2, for example, there are many benefits of electric cars. For example, it can save the fossil fuels, the oil, the petrol, the coal. We don't have to import them. So we save foreign currency. So these are many benefits. You can complete the other sentences by sentences from your own idea, from your own opinion. And then with a partner, with a colleague, or with brother or sister at home, do you agree with these ideas or not? Do that as a home practice and exercise, please. That's a preparation for the speaking task. First, to know the linking words, different linking words, and then to know how to talk about advantages and disadvantages. Then, a speaking task. In any speaking task, you first need to get well prepared. Prepare yourself well. And then do some exercise, do some practice. Then you are ready to go into a discussion, into the speaking task. You can then start speaking freely. Let's have this speaking task together. You are a member of a city council. The city has to decide how to develop a large piece of land. Some members of the city council want to build a new shopping center. Others prefer to build a park. First, let's prepare ourselves together. You need to be a 4-person group. Each one is going to take one of the following rules. One is going to be student A, one is going to be student B, a third student C, and the final one is going to be student D. Each one is going to be one of these students. Read your rule carefully. Each of the four is going to read his rule or her rule carefully. Then, with your own, think about the advantages and the disadvantages of the two projects from the point of view of your character mentioned. And you can put down notes. For example, the person who is taking student A, it says, you are a parent with 3 children. You want your children to spend more time outdoors and be active. It means you need a park. So when you put the advantages and disadvantages, put the advantages and disadvantages, advantages that favors a park and disadvantages against the new shopping center. That's, for example, for the student A. Another example, student B. You own a small convenience store. You have a small shop and you are worried that new shopping mall will take away your business. This new shopping mall might take your customers. So put down some advantages with building a park and disadvantages against building a new shopping center. So each one is going to read his rule carefully, student A, B, C, or D, and each one is going to put advantages and disadvantages of the two projects, the new shopping center or building a park, in the point of view of your character. That's the preparation. Get yourself well prepared well. Then you need to do some practice. Do some practice with persons who are with you in the same character. For example, student A, it looks like he needs a park for his children. Student B, it looks like he does not need a shopping center. Student C, he needs the city more beautiful, so he's with building a park. Student D, he needs to open another restaurant, another business, to expand his business, so he's with a new shopping center. So those who are with building a park should sit together, discuss their ideas together, their advantages or disadvantages, which will be similar to some extent to each other, and discuss the ways how to move their arguments, how to improve their arguments. That's the practice. Those who have the same character sit together because they are going to have the same opinion and write down the advantages and the disadvantages of the two projects. And then in the discussion, in the debate, the different characters will sit in front of each other. And each one is going to mention his opinion and the advantage and disadvantage of each project in light of his or her character. For example, we are for those who are with building a park are going to mention their opinion. I'm with building a park because the advantages are 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the disadvantages of building a new shopping center are 1, 2, and 3. The opposite one is going to speak back in an opposing argument. No, I'm with building a new shopping center because the advantages are 1, 2, 3, and while building a park, the disadvantages might be 1, 2, and 3. These are the opposing groups. So the preparation, you are going to prepare yourself with the point of view of your character and put down some notes, the advantages and disadvantages of the two projects in light of your point of view of character. Then practice with your similarities, with your similar people, with the people with the same character, with the same opinion, to help to enrich your advantages and disadvantages the way you are arguing. And then in the discussion, you are in a debate. Sit with all people, with all the group, and people with different characters are going to discuss it together, discuss the different opinions with each other. Each one is going to mention the advantages and disadvantages and try to reach a final conclusion or a final decision. When doing this speaking task with your colleagues or your brother and sister at home, please do not forget to use linking ideas, linking words or phrases. Do not forget to explain and express the advantages and disadvantages in a clear way. Please use the modal verbs to express your opinions: can, could, may, might, will, would. Don't forget to use the negative prefixes correctly whenever and wherever appropriate. Thank you very much and wish you a good day.